GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com. AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007. And since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions. I have to say all that again. I've been muted. So this is now just starting?
Yes, you have been muted.
All right, so thanks for that. So yeah, this is Ask Gun Questions. At least I remember where all I've been saying. Ask Gun Questions, our Saturday show where we attempt to answer gun questions that come in throughout the week to our website, AskGunQuestions.com. It's been out there since 2007. Over the years, we've done different ways of answering those questions. Recently now, we're on 18 shows for the last 18 weeks, I guess, or so. We've been inviting in some longtime, lifetime gun owners. Clover Tech just joined us as we went live here. Thanks for letting me know I was muted.
You bet. Forward to another good show.
And we also invite in Tony Simon from New Jersey, a Marine and activist, 2A activist in New Jersey. And then Dan Todd, who is a gun shop owner, longtime gun owner, and now a Pot of Gold auction. And they also do the podcast. So he's interviewed just about everybody you know in the Second Amendment realm, a bunch of people in the firearms industry, and then having the gun shop, which is not a gun shop that just a typical gun shop. It was a pretty awesome gun shop. Just closed down recently, but we give them invites, and they're often able to jump in when their schedules mash, like I did with Clover this week. And let's see, I was also thanking the people that join us live. We have a hashtag going this week, hashtag 762X39MM. So 762 by 39, all spelled out like the way Mark did it here. And that'll get you in running for our patch pack of the day. All right, so I didn't have a chance to really talk to Clover since, like I say, he jumped in just as I hit the live button. So, and then all that stuff I was muted for. So now we're finally getting underway here. I have the first question I'll just throw out there as like a warm up, even though it had nothing to do with anything. I was watching, I guess it's Polite Society. I don't even know. It is on the Polite Society podcast channel, but I don't know if it's the Second Amendment podcast or if it's their podcast or whatever, but it's their Saturday show. I think it's the Weekly Bullet. And they had Teresa Inniker on there from New Jersey. And some stuff came up and they were talking about, actually, I can't remember the actual issue because there was a lot of stuff happening in that show. But they were talking about the idea, I think it was something, I forget the crime, but they were talking about the concept that some crimes in some places are not followed up on by law enforcement.
Correct.
If it's like a petty crime or like somebody breaking into a car, and that made me think if they're not going to follow up or even do anything, like with a car accident, it's one thing. You got two people involved. I think making false car accidents would be pretty tough. But if you can just say, oh, my box was stolen out of my car, like, oh, my stuff was stolen out of my thing. And you can just say that all day long, and nobody, I mean, if there's no police report, then there's no arbitrary third party that's there to determine whether or not it actually happened. And that
Right.
can be like, oh, I need a new Xbox, or I need a new pair of shoes. So I'm gonna, hoodie, ring, whatever it is you value. I need a new one. I'm gonna say that, get this insurance fraud situation happening. But what you're doing is creating these false crimes in the books. Because if they're gonna take it for granted, they're gonna probably want a crime, or what do you call it? Yeah, a crime report or whatever it's called, right? Like a instance.
Right.
And if the insurance company is probably going to want one for some kind of stupid reason, if they're just going to accept that as a thing. But I guess, and what I'm saying is the consequence then for the rest of us is like there could be the suggestion that places are heavily violent crime ridden, when in reality they're heavily insurance scam ridden, and
Right.
it's nothing violent happening, because you're not going to get shot if you're doing an insurance scam. You're going to say someone held a gun at you, right?
Right.
But saying, is that a gun crime now?
Right.
I was held at gunpoint and the guy got away. He had a mask on, or it was a girl, whatever. I'm woke, so it was a girl in a wheelchair,
Yeah.
and she spoke a different language, and I was scared, and she had a gun, so I gave her all my money or my thing, and now can I file that insurance scam? Or I mean, insurance
Well,
claim? So I was
it's a
just
roll
throwing
of the
that out there.
dice. It's a really big roll of the dice, I think, in a day and age with cell phones and ring cameras and traffic cameras and you know what I mean? Just all the different stuff out there. Because what happens if they were to follow up on that, right? And here you are, you've claimed something, and then they, I mean, I guess if you're smart enough and you claim it in the pace that there's absolutely no chance of any cameras or anything going on, it's one thing. But if you said it happened, let's say in the Walmart parking lot, right? And then they do follow up on it, even though they say, oh, we're just, we're going to write a report, blah, 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 and it comes across some rookie cop's desk or something, and they decide they're going to follow through on it. And then they go pull security camera footage from Walmart, and it's like, that you weren't even there that day. What are you talking about?
Well, and that's where I don't want to get too scary, but we had a robot chat last night, and that was sort of the topic there. Is that at some point what you're describing is, I think, what everybody would anticipate would be the normal cause and effect, or like reaction to a situation with the resources we have today. But once you have AI, a robot brain that you can set in front of a camera and say, pay attention to everything here, and just by the way, remember everything you see, then you could have one set of AI say,
Yeah.
this person with the insurance claims this happened at such and such time. Please tell me where they were and show me everything you can. And then the other way, you can say, an insurance claim was filed at this point in time. Please show me everything you can. So in other words, follow through on the individual from every camera angle, like where was their phone? What was their phone chirping and beeping at? Because the thing is, you walk up to another phone and they make contact with each other and chat. And okay, so this criminal came up to you, but they didn't have a phone. Okay, so then, XYZ, we can claim we can see every other heat signature in the parking lot has a phone associated with it. So who is this phantom other person? You know what I mean? It can get to that point.
And
As soon
even
as you don't need an
phone
individual
triangulation.
to follow it up, as soon as you just have AI or a logarithm that follows through, and now a human just has to say, investigate this, click, and then all of that takes place with asking AIs to go back and remember what happened weeks ago or months ago. That's nothing for AI, right? Once it gets to be like, what happened 20 years ago? Well, we don't have cameras then. But what happened 6 months ago? Oh, well, we got 4K cameras. We can, 4K 360 cameras. We can just record everything that happens in our parking lot, and our AIs can go back at any time and focus on anything. Like, did a bird fly by? Did a firecracker come hurling in from which direction? Let's do the trajectory and figure out which apartment block that firecracker came from. Right. So once we get to a point where, we've got ultimate is that Big Brother, I guess, watching everything for our own good and protection, then it gets, you know what I mean? Like that's a crazy backdoor. So this whole thing, I just think is interesting that, what people are going to use to suggest we need protection or safety. It's a question like, hey, where are you getting this number from? High crime rates. Like, is that really happening? Anyway, I guess that's a tinfoil hat way to start that show off. But that was from kind of the blow off of like, you know, because we hear it so often and people say about the echo chamber, and what's dangerous about the echo chamber is it dulls the edges, the blades, right?
Yeah.
You can go in there and you can hone your edge, but if you stay in there too long, it dulls your edge. So if you have enough people going, oh man, that's frustrating, you just take it as for granted. Oh, that's the frustrating part of life. Well, no, it's not. It only was like that for a little while, and you can flip it right back over. Like this doesn't need to be that way. This is an intentional push, and you don't rest when they get an intentional push. You push right back. Anyway, getting into questions or whatever, or I guess we're rambling because nobody's really saying anything out there. So if anybody is out there that wants to participate, feel free to ask away. If you want to participate in the patch pack of the day, set of patches, that'll be going away randomly here in a bit. Put in a hashtag 762X39MM, just like Mark did. All right, with that, did you got anything to chat about before we get going with the questions that have come in?
Not particularly. I mean, something kind of relevant and interesting with Ask Gun Questions and in your poll that's out there and some other things, I guess, would be the video I dropped yesterday on a pre-68 Marlin built rifle. I don't want to give it away, but that I found interesting that it was built by a major manufacturer, and very major manufacturer for that time frame. Late 50s, early 60s, and having no serial number. So, original ghost gun. I thought that was just a pretty cool thing. So I had to make a little video on that. But yeah, we talked about some of that, obviously, here on the show in the past.
Right on. And then you also reminded me that I got a poll going over here. So yeah, on the YouTube side, there's a poll. Part of the YouTube thing when you're live like this is you can have a poll. So if you're watching this live, or if you want to show up and vote, if you're listening to this in the future, we go live on Saturdays I just do it noon my time because our times change. That's usually 3 p.m. Eastern, but being in Arizona, y'all change your time zones around us. I think right now it's 3 p.m. Eastern though. I think that's when we started. So anyhow, we got 6 votes in here. Which are the best gun questions and answers? Right. So it's a gun question about gun questions. So which are people's favorite questions and answers in the topic of guns? And I put up a couple of options about how guns work and their tech, about firearms facts and history, about using and shooting guns, or about gun owners' rights and gun laws. And so far, it looks like we got 2 votes for how they work, 2 votes for facts and history, and 2 votes for rights and laws, and no votes for using or shooting. So that's interesting. So anyway, we'll keep that running for the show, and then usually throw it in the description down here so people can see what the results were at the end. I almost always forget to end the polls, especially if I'm not paying attention to the YouTube side. Reason for that is because we use StreamYard. StreamYard is a thing hanging out on this left side of the screen over here. That's where we can highlight comments like I do with Mark's comment here. So I end up watching this 99% of the time and totally forgetting about the YouTube side, especially when we jump over to another page like this where the actual questions come in. So if you go to the website and ask a question, it's just a little Google thingy. Anybody can set this up on your own website or whatever, and whatever you put into these forms, go boom into this what is this, a spreadsheet, I guess. And if I jump back over, I think what happened is I manually put one in here. And what happens is when you manually put an item into this automated spreadsheet by Google, it just starts stacking them in front. So I came in here last couple of weeks and I was thinking, oh, something's broken. Like it's not working, because I kept seeing the question I put in there at the bottom, but it turns out I just wasn't paying attention and it was sorting them differently than I expected. So we have quite a few questions in here from past weeks. And I apologize to people that have been putting them in with frustration because we missed them, I guess. Mm-hmm. All right. So with that, we're about 15 minutes in. We'll take feedback if you have ideas about the show or the way we run it. Feel free to leave them wherever you happen to watch this. I finally got some feedback from UGEtube the other day. So there are humans over at UGEtube.
Yep.
I like their concept and I like the platform. I'm not super thrilled with the content. Some of it's really weird and dumb to me, but it's free, and it's not free like inexpensive, free. Like they're trying to keep it open for everybody for everything, not just a gun platform. So because of that, there's weird stuff over there. But there's plenty of people with the gun stuff, and it's definitely a gun focused one. So I'm digging it, and I'm glad to see that there's actually humans over there. All right. So with demand for firearms at record highs, do you think we'll see constitutional carry in all of our states within our lifetime?
Ooh, within our lifetime. That's a good question. I'm going to say no. I think there's some strongholds that I just don't see it happening in a few of those. So I can think of about 4 quickly off the top of my head. And so in my lifetime, I don't think so, being realistic. We're already to the point that the majority of states it's fixing to happen. But yeah, all of them, that's a stretch. 50 states, you're almost always going to have the outlier. The whole idea, for those that don't know, of a United States of America was for, and 10th Amendment protection and other things was for states to be able to experiment and do their own thing and that sort of stuff. And so, out of 50 states, you're almost certainly and always going to have a small percentage, 1 or 2. I would think that's going to be doing something totally different, wild, wacky compared to everybody else. And so, unfortunately, my answer is no.
So I think this one comes in from somebody we know. So I think this one is not just like a blow off question, but somebody's really thinking about it, are really curious in the answer. And I mean, I guess I see what you're saying, and I'm not going to challenge it so much as say I'm still optimistic because I
Oh yeah,
think it can be a yes and no, like an on off switch. There's some things like I'm trying to think of a good example, and I can't really think of. I was trying to think of maybe like the speed limit, which was kind of pushed down people's throat for some because it was. But I'm
yeah,
trying to think. There's things that there's must be things I'm just not thinking of. Maybe the oh man, I'm trying to think of something that kind of everybody agreed was a good idea. That didn't really bother anybody. Maybe the safety stuff for medicines or something like there was some things that like the industries had done voluntarily to prevent regulation, and everybody was like, "Oh, let's just adopt
right.
that," kind of thing. And if it can be like that, then I think it can happen. I don't think it's
Yeah,
unrealistic because what
yeah,
we're talking about is for people to chill because we know that guns aren't the issue, and they're conflating criminal activity with the possession of property, and
right,
what they're really banking on isn't the situation in the country. What they're banking on is the inexperience and unawareness of all those antis and all those people on the fence just not caring or understanding what's going on. And what's really happening isn't we're changing a bunch of people to be pro gun. What's really happening is the face of firearms owners is changing, and that Overton window is now it's becoming more like a soccer mom, more like a family event, more like a hand down a tradition, more like a respectable thing, more like an organized sport, and less of a weird thing that happens in the shadows at gun shows. And there's weird symbolism and like who's really there and is it, what is militia, is that a scary thing, like they've really tried hard to manipulate what gun community was. And it,
right,
a long time gun community, for the most part, we just left us alone. We were minding our business and didn't realize because nobody was paying attention to the different media sources, like what they were saying about us and that. And if they did, we would just be like, who cares, right? What do we care? Because we weren't united and we didn't care. And then what happened is the community became larger and nobody cared because we're fine with that. I mean, we want everybody to own guns, including our own grandchildren and friends and neighbors and everybody, right? Everybody is a gun owner, like that. So eventually that happened, and all this misunderstanding from those people who first came over to guns were like, oh, wait a minute, water's fine over here. Everybody jump in. This is awesome. And then all these new gun owners and stuff. So literally they can't use those things anymore. Like it is changing, right? So, uh, um,
yeah. I hear you. I've got optimism too. I mean, in the sense that I would like to see it happen, and
well, I guess I'm saying
I
I
don't
think
think we
that
I don't we ever
thing,
stop pushing, and I also think there's pathways for that as well. I think that a potential pathway, especially if we look at political partisanship and a lot of the other craziness that's going on right now. Another pathway, I mean, could be something at the federal level could set that in motion to bring a couple of those states in line, whether they want to or not.
Like make loose a log jam, like change, like move a
Yeah.
keystone, and everything shifts.
Yeah, and it's like that, those couple of states I'm talking about that I don't realistically think would ever do it on their own or sign up. Their hand is forced. You know what I mean? So I do see some scenarios that like that. So I think we still need to be pushing and pressing forward with it, regardless.
Well, sure. What I was also going to say though is like, so we got this new like awareness of it. Like there's less consequence. Like before there was just this consequence. They would say that gun owners are this and gun owners didn't do nothing about it. Therefore, they were able to push this agenda for a long time. Finally, gun owners woke up and were bad at saying, hey, we leave us alone. And then, like I say, gun owners just changed. They don't have that same group of people anymore. They're literally retired and gone and not interested anymore. They also fought for a long time. We were tired of it, right? They've done their battles. So this, the gun owner group changed, and there's this new awareness, this new resource, new ability to fight. So I guess what I'm also saying is, it's an on-off switch. Once people don't have that fear or unawareness anymore, then they're not afraid of it, and they're more comfortable with it. And like you kind of mentioned, 26 states, 25 states, I guess, so technically, and we're on our way to more. That's the kind of precedence that people can become more comfortable with the concept. And that's one of those things, like then they go, well, why don't you got it? And it's like, yeah, you're right. Right. And then I want to throw in this other thing, and that's where we almost never incorporate technology. And you can't anticipate specific technology, but we must anticipate the growth exponentially of technology. Right. We've got new techs, and ideally, as these laws get stripped, these infringing laws from the olden days when people were scared and weird and materials were dumb and different and things took forever and there was just, different processes. Those stupid laws, once they're removed, then we have options. And I want to throw in the concept that right now we have on-off switches. Like we have guns that are kind of difficult to deal with. You have to use them well, and they're effective. But you don't have to use them all that. You don't have to be a surgeon with it. You just have to be someone awake and able to fiddle with mittens. You don't have to be like us, a microsurgeon or something, or a rocket scientist. However, I'm not saying smart guns in the regards of stupid infringement garbage. I'm just saying, what about when technologies change and we come up with something that does something? Let's just say the magic switch, where you pull the button, push the button, the magic switch happens. And I've been a big advocate of this for a long time. As we get elderly people with differently abled situations with their hands or with their abilities or with their attention spans or with whatever, right? There should be guns that don't look like guns because they don't need to. Right? There's no stupid reason a gun has to look like a gun, except for an arcane 1934 law where scared people didn't want certain people to own these things. They required that they look like this stupid, characteristics. But once you remove that infringement, and guns can look like a disc or a wafer or whatever is comfortable for a person's hand, just like a prosthetic, like whatever is comfortable for that with their appendage, and then you create something with very low recoil. And the ability to, let's say, if you mix something with, I don't want to say taser, but with the elements of taser that were to throw identifying serial number confetti into the scene and marking dies. So if you create situations where people have a spectrum of options, and they can do things with penetrable dies and encoding things, and maybe something that turns on every cell cam in the neighborhood. What happens when you draw a pistol and it turns on every cell phone in the area to a gun crime alert? Not in a bad way, but I'm saying, like, let's have room for opportunities here for when a new piece of tech happens and everybody goes, oh, I'm comfortable with that. There shouldn't be a law that says you can't have any tech in this direction like they want to do now. They want to say you can't develop technology, right? When what the next technology could just, the same way that the 357, which came first, 357 or 38? 357 came along and perfected what the 38 could have done, right? Like, the next tech could perfect what's next. Like the next round could be, you take that worthless 9mm cases that are everywhere, that'll be once because they're sick of reloading that tiny cartridge, and you resize them into a more useful projectile or something that's, I don't know, something based that we don't know about yet. 3D printed something. And then, I'm just saying we could have a situation where people in cities are all of a sudden really comfortable with the idea that, oh, this immobilizes them. What if it's like some kind of silly putty thing that hardens and then, sticks them to wherever until the police come. Like, and now little old lady can go, I'm like Spider-Man. I can just go click, and then bad guy is immobilized until police come and I can file my report. And I don't even have to file the report because cameras came on. I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to suggest I'm in favor of any weird tech as much as I want the next tech to exist.
Right.
Anyway, so I'm just throwing that out there that maybe that's an answer to it too. That's why I'm still optimistic. And we didn't know about airplanes when my grandpa was a little kid. I'm pretty sure. Is that how it works? He definitely didn't know about spaceships. Spaceships were utter fantasy when my grandfather was a baby. It wasn't until World War I or something, and when they started shooting rockets in World War II, when they really started figuring out how to wing rockets far, that they figured out, well, we're winging these rockets far enough we could go up instead of killing each other with them and maybe do something with them.
Yep.
Right. So, and then airplanes, Wright brothers and all that. So we're not talking that far ago that we've had some massive changes. Definitely when we were little, no one thought about what we'd be doing right now. So there's no possible way we're thinking about the kind of tech that can exist 10 years from now. And let's leave ourselves open to that, right? Anyway, I'm ranting. This one's a weird one, way more specific. Should I hit the comments before we keep going? You're reading them too, I think. Brian says, no one would accept the type of rhetoric on the First Amendment, not realizing the construction of the Second is basically the death of individual democracy.
I would disagree. There's already people that are, like infringements on the First Amendment. So there would be people.
There's people that are okay with infringements.
Yeah, when he says no one, I don't agree with the no one statement. Most people probably wouldn't. And that's that whole idea of the Overton window. But, we see it now. I mean, there's people every day of the week calling for more censorship, legit censorship and everything else with the First Amendment. So, yeah.
Now, if you're thinking of the guy downstairs, I talked to him and got in a fight with him, kind of, because he definitely was making the wrong kind of smart gun. He was making the kind that only shot for the person that was holding it, kind of smart gun. And I don't know. Anyway, but I didn't see this one, which Maggie's talking about. I have heard of one where a guy said that he was going to make one for his daughter. No, that was the guy with the 22. What was that thing called? The one with the rounds on top, and it was an innovative, the ounce pistol or something like that.
The ounce. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what Smeggy's saying. That guy, the ounce guy, he was saying about how he wanted to improve it by making it call dad or something if it ever had to be deployed.
Yeah,
and I could see that. Wouldn't you think a daughter be like comfortable with having the thing call whoever, not just necessarily dad only, but whoever, parent, or friend, responsible, just like a anything really, like somebody who's going to be willing to be on the other end of the line and be a witness immediately, right? Hey, I was minding my business. I got this alert that somebody had to draw their thing, and I was on their phone watching their thing happen, and this is how I saw. I don't know. Is that the next step, or is that a next step?
Well, could be.
Okay, so this one's definitely not my thing, but maybe you know it. Maybe somebody else there knows it. We're not saying we can answer every question, but we'll read them. I have a Carl Gustafs something rifle. If you know those words, then go for it. The only mark are a crown over Carl Gustafs and a date 1914 and the serial number with like a 5-digit serial number. Can you give me any info on the rifle and caliber?
Nope.
Okay, so me either. But here's what you do. You type it into the web, and almost for everything, there's somebody who's interested in it. And often if it's a big enough interest, then there's some kind of forum or subsection of a bigger forum. So in this case, there might be, I don't know if I've never heard of this rifle, so I'm just guessing there's not a ton of people looking at this one. But if it's a bolt action gun during blah, 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 France, World War II, World War I, whatever, there might be a section on a World War I forum or a French gun forum, right, that talks about it. So usually search engines are your way to go, or some kind of a book, go into a library, not a library, but like a gun library.
Well, and I can certainly turn anyone on. I mean, we forget the world is bigger than just YouTube or a live show on YouTube. So reach out to me through social media, email, some other kind of more permanent means of communication, and also being able to share pictures and other things. And I think G-Webs knows where I'm coming from with this. I know plenty of people that could probably answer that question and tell you more than you would want to know about it. But this forum, they're not here on the panel, and even if they were, something like that, pictures are really important. So pictures of certain markings and everything else. So yeah, I think ultimately we could get those questions answered for that person. Just needs to be done in a little more a better setting, a more conducive setting to that sort of thing.
So that's valid. So let's say that somebody wanted to package this question up, though, so that if they didn't know the setting, right? Like they're learning this. So, okay, I don't know the setting, but I still have my question. How would they package this up to be the best question possible so that it can be carried along and not lose data or whatever? So first off, I have a Carl, whatever that is, that's all not capitalized. And I don't know what part of that is the word. I don't know if Carl Gustaf is like the guy who possessed it and that's the rest of it, or you know what I'm saying? Like give us a real common name of it or find one, right? And then some things like the only marks are a crown over the thing and the date. That's all good. Sometimes saying things like the date is larger than the serial number is okay, but then the serial number is 1/4 inch long, or some kind of a measurement, or the crown is the size of a dime. That starts giving you some perspective. And then I'd say things like if you really wanted to know, adding some stuff like the stock seems to be in great condition, but it might be missing some wood, or doesn't look like it's ever been cut. I'm trying to think of like some general ways to give people some information about the item so that it's descriptive without being overly descriptive, but also still useful, right? So that, like I say, if somebody's like, hey, somebody owns a rifle, can you tell them about it? No. Like somebody owns the Swedish blah, 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 and they wonder if they're missing wood. Okay, that's more of a question I can deal with. So Gun Geek is out there. Is that the Gun Geek from Canada? Sounds like it might be an M96 Mauser and 6.5 by 55 Swedish.
Right. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, I've heard those numbers and things before.
I would tend to agree with Gun Geek on that. Yeah. It being a Gustav. Yeah.
If that's Gun Geek from Canada, then that is, I'm pretty sure, a channel that's older than my channel. I'm pretty sure he was doing his thing way before me. I know he's older than anybody that's listening to this, as far as being a long time live chat on YouTube. Let's see. So I don't know if that's satisfaction, but like Clover said, you get what you're going to get. I mean, if you asked us the price of a specific coin on here, it's about the same answer. Not going to be able to give you everything you're looking for necessarily. But we're happy to take the questions because hopefully we'll offer like that some spin on it so that it's useful for as many people as possible.
Yep.
Let's see. Can I put
and thanks to Gun Geek out there for throwing in. That's all part of this too. I just want to remind folks it's not about coming in and asking questions, but helping to answer them as well. So thanks.
Oh yeah, definitely. Can I put a Kriss Vector magazine in my Glock 22 if it's meant for 10 millimeter? That's an interesting question. Do Vectors take Glock mags? I imagine they do.
I think so, yeah.
So I know that I have Vector magazine extensions on my 10 millimeter, when I don't own the Glock anymore, but when I had a 10 millimeter Glock, we put the Vector magazine extensions on the Glock magazines and used them in the Glock, and they worked fine. So yeah. If they also insert into the Vector, then I can't imagine why they wouldn't work. Yes. And they were the 545 ones. I mean, there is no 10 millimeter one. So they were the 45 extensions.
Right.
So Tony's jumping in. Tony, do you remember or do you know of Gun Geek from back in the day? I mean, he's still around, so it's not like he's gone.
Gun Geek from Canada, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been subscribed to him for years.
I should say it this way. A long time ago when YouTube first started, it was kicked in the balls videos and kittens and stuff. And then maybe for me at least, 2009, 2008, somewhere like that is when I joined YouTube because I wanted to try putting a video on it because I couldn't put videos on my own websites as cheaply. Like it was really expensive to put a video on your website, even if it was like a megabyte big or something, like a little tiny video from a junky camera that barely existed, like a 16-second video. It was cheaper and easier for me to put it on YouTube and then link to it and all these forums and stuff because that was the way we talked at the time. So when YouTube started in 2009-ish for me, and then kind of internet speeds got faster, more people used YouTube. Some of us became partners and stuff, and then people were using it as their full-time thing. That's when the communities started up in the comments, at least the first communities of people like actually chatting with each other. Gun Geek is that first core, not just community, but like Gizzard Gary now hosts a 4-hour show on Sunday mornings and a 2-hour show on Friday nights and lets people hang out and chat. I mean, that's what Gun Geek's been doing since, I don't know, 2009 or something, 10, since the live chats. Well, I don't know. Were you doing them before YouTube? The YouTube Gun live chats came around in about mid 2012, I think. No, yeah, 2012, before, maybe 11. No, I can't remember anymore. A long time ago. But before that, we used some other platforms to talk live, and then used YouTube to post them on afterwards. And that created some communities. And that's, like I say, Gun Geek. I think of it as like those were the original video communities. Maybe that's the way to say it. And then we all just got bigger and started doing our thing, and more people came along, and people get into fights, and people move, and people ditch out for a while, and then life happens and things change, and then YouTube changed the platform out from under us in 19. So it seems like for like yesterday for me, but it's been since September of 19, right, when they dropped Hangouts, and we had to jump over to StreamYard like this.
That sounds about right.
So anyway, yeah. So She Fires is asking, what's your best record keeping method of weapons that you purchase, and do you add your weapons to your insurance policy? So that's a great question. I got answers to both of them, but I'll let you guys hit that one if you want, or if you want me to go, I'll go. First off, I'll go. I don't like calling weapons. I call them firearms. But did you say you want to go? Go.
No, actually, I'd like to hear someone else's ideas because
so
I just have my paperwork.
I used to be more worried and paranoid about it. And seriously, I mean, I've been working on computers forever. And for whatever reason, I was super paranoid about doing it on a computer. So I did it by paper for a long time. And then at some point, it's just way too much to write on paper. You'd have enough guns and stuff that it's just not worth it anymore. So I do use a spreadsheet. What I do is I put it on a spreadsheet, and then I take the saved file and put that file on a thumb drive, or however many copies of it I want to have. So I have copies of it, and then take those thumb drives off the computer, and then nothing lives on the computer anymore. So I work on the computer, but the thumb drives hold the files. And then, having a thumb drive in your safe is a good idea, but obviously not the only one you want. So put them wherever you feel is a good, safe place to put it. You can put passwords on the thumb drives. You can do things, but I'd have at least 3 thumb drives so that if one of them gets crushed physically or hurt, magnetized or something, you've got the other ones. But so I use a spreadsheet, and we can get into if you guys want to talk about it, because there's lots of different record keeping things. You can get somebody's form and just copy and paste it and use that, or just listen to some people's theories and strategies and just kind of create a spreadsheet. Kind of depends on how comfortable you are with spreadsheets, I guess. Or some other program, like any other kind of program, a Word program, even an image program. You could do some stuff with the collection. And then as far as adding them to your insurance, I definitely have them added as a rider on my insurance. So they cover X amount of anything. If I had a lot of motorcycles or computers or gold bricks, they would say, under your regular insurance policy, it's either renters or homeowners. They're going to say, it's normal for a person to have, let's say, $7,000 worth of computers or something. But beyond that, we want you to have a rider. So I just have a rider. And in that rider, I think they don't really ask me to list them, but my spreadsheet and some other ways that I document them are my ways that I document them, and then keep that information as photos on the drives and things like that. So that's my answer.
I use one called GunSafe. It's an app. So.
Oh, an actual app, like you go get it for your phone?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You don't got any concern about that? That seems super crazy to me.
And there's the pro version, and it also with the pro version, it has got a free version, but with a pro version, it will actually export a file, and then you can do one of two things. You can either export a file that is proprietary, right, to GunSafe, which means if somebody was to get that file or whatever, they'd have to have your login information and also or passcode, whatever, to break the encryption. Plus, they'd have to have the program. Or you can also export it as a spreadsheet, like you're talking about, the data in it.
So you can have kind of two backups, one that's fancy in their formatting, and then a backup that's more.
But even a paper copy, if you think about it, export it to a spreadsheet and then print it out. Yeah.
Well, that's an option too, and I forgot to say that. Like you can have all your fancy stuff on the computers, however you want, whatever your preference, and then print out a bunch of stuff and put that again wherever you might put paper valuables.
Right. Yep.
See, this is why I like this show. I just found a way I'm going to start record keeping with my firearms. Appreciate that, buddy.
Boom. Another tip I'd say is like maybe not your birthday, because a birthday gets used by a lot of stuff, but people come up with ideas like when to change the smoke alarm batteries. I like think like when to change the batteries in your optics, or when to change other important batteries, lasers, or something like that. And then maybe when to just do deep cleanings or something. So at some time, maybe when you're doing your once or twice a year deep cleanings or something, I don't know if people go through their safes and just monitor, make sure nothing's getting out of hand, rusty or weird. Something's fallen or scratching something, maybe going in at those kind of times and making sure all the stuff is updated, having a regular routine of when you update everything, because I'm assuming a bunch of people listening to this are new gun owners, or maybe older long-time gun owners can attest to this. You can think you're not going to buy a lot of guns, but that's like thinking you're not going to buy a lot of anything you get into a hobby of. You're just going to mind your own business, and that'll be too cheap to pass up, or shouldn't pass this up, or I'm going to try this out. I didn't like it, so I'm going to try that out. And you forget you bought the second one, like you're going to end up having a bunch of guns. And if you don't actually think about it once in a while, when you go to think about how many guns do I have? And do I have them all written down on that spreadsheet? It sneaks up on you. You might have 2 or 3 missing out of there.
Right.
100% agree.
I say 2 or 3, but I so much wanted to say 5 or 6 because it'll happen. Just keep hanging out. It'll happen.
But there's a lot of different apps out there. Just play around with the free versions, I would say, and find something to your liking, because not everything is everybody's cup of tea. But I would highly recommend that it has the ability to export the data in some way, shape, form, or fashion. That way you can offload it from your phone in case you lose your phone, in case anything happens. You've got that offloaded. I like to keep a thumb drive with I've got paper copies of all kinds of stuff. And then I also like to keep a thumb drive with not only scans of paper copies, but exported files and spreadsheets and things like that as well. So I keep a thumb drive with all kinds of data locked away in a lockbox in a safe, kind of double locked, for heat protection and things like that than anything, heat and water protection. And then, like I said, and then the paper copies. So you can never have too much. And then she had a second part to that question, which said, do you add your firearms to your insurance policy? Some insurance policies, if you're talking homeowners, won't allow it. And you've got to go third party and get some kind of rider or something like that. I have actually my home insurance only covers a certain amount, and it doesn't even begin to cover if I lost all of my firearms, unfortunately.
Oh, no way. And they also never cover. They don't cover your ammo and optics and stuff that really cause some real scratch. And
right.
I mean, when you think firearms, think about all those other things that right next to them are on me.
It's like the most I could get with my homeowner's coverage, for the firearm protection or whatever, was like $15,000. It's like that's not even close. And so I've actually got 2 other policies on top of that. Well, I've got a rider to that policy, and then I've got a totally separate policy.
It's worth having. I mean, insurance is one of those things that you don't think about until you need it.
And it also depends on how you store your stuff and what type of policy, right? Like, with with the extra policy I have anyway, and I can't even remember at this point who it's through. Wasn't prepared for the question, unfortunately, but Seafires can reach out to me and we can follow up if she's interested. But yeah, I mean, it's cost different amounts depending on what you want. I mean, do you want all of the above? Do you just want theft? Do you just want fire? Do you just want flood? Do you, you know, what type of policy?
You know, that's a good point. Here in Arizona, our number one issue is flood because a water heater or something will break, you know, pipe will intake or something or anything, pipe will break and then flood a house. And you don't need to have it underwater to get enough into your safe to make everything in there ruined, right?
Well, and I'm not gonna go into the details why, because that's counterproductive to what I do. But for me, theft is not a huge concern.
Because nobody wants old flood guns. We understand.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah, let's go with that.
They break in and they're like, wait a minute, this is all just old stocks and pieces of metal.
You know, that shows you the ignorance of a burglar is all I gotta say, because the most expensive guns out there are flood guns. I hate to tell you.
I thought there was guns in here. Nope, just BB guns or something. All right, let's get out of here. So, and then Smeggy would say, I don't know, Tony, did you want to throw anything before we go on to Smeggy's piece?
No, we can go on.
He was saying, what kind of things do you keep track of? Now, I just made my spreadsheet up, and I made mine up after looking at a couple. They weren't apps at the time, because when I did all my stuff was a million years ago, and the apps didn't exist. There wasn't phones like that. So it was more like little software that you would get. And I was even more suspect of little software you get online for free. FYI, always be suspect of anything that's a little free software online. Not that everybody's out to get you, but that's just like finding a free cupcake. Not every cupcake's out to get you, but you only need one cupcake out to get you to never eat a free cupcake, right? You're not going to just eat some cupcakes that's laying on the sidewalk, right? I hope. Think of that.
I don't know. I've seen Tony eat some questionable cupcakes before.
Well, I found stuff on the ground before. I'm just saying it can be tempting, but all I'm saying is those little softwares I used to be really skeptical of. So I looked at them, and they go around work. We used to work today along and stuff. People would sub them around work, and I'd be like, "Oh, when you write down what the data is, and go home and do this on Excel or whatever it was back then."
Right.
So,
right.
But that's where I got mine. So I have way more than a normal person probably, because why not, right? It's a spreadsheet, you got nothing else to do, especially when you're looking at your guns. So I'm trying to remember everything now, but I'll have the data about the gun, right? So the date it was made, and not just like this is a model, whatever, but if I know the date my gun was made, because some people do, I put that in there as a separate column. So if it's whatever model year, and then whatever date it was actually born, if I have it. And sometimes you get that from research, and sometimes it's actually on there somehow. And then any specific, so you got your normal stuff, caliber and all that kind of thing. You want to leave a column for conversions, because maybe you have 6 or 8 barrels for that thing, and you might as well have a column in there so you're not trying to cross-reference everything, or maybe
different grips or sights or flashlight or whatever.
That's a whole accessory thing. That's a whole accessory column. But yeah, then you have stuff for accessories, and depending on how you do your guns, if you've got a bunch of rifles where you're almost always going to have an optic and a stock and a whole bunch of stuff, then you might have a different one than a person. Actually, nowadays, I was going to say than a pistol person who hasn't, but nowadays when I say pistols can have just about as much frills as everything else. So yeah, definitely leave some accessories. I'll have what I paid for it. I'll have what it was going for, because I like to keep track. So when I'm old, I can go, because, you know, I've had good relationships with people, and I'm a massive, awesome wheeler and dealer or whatever. And I did trades and stuff. So I keep track of that, because I'm not going to remember all that. And if you think you can, good luck. If you stick with guns, you're not going to remember stuff after your 15th or 18th gun or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's just too many transactions and stuff. Keep track of where you got it and when. Sort of, because as working at gun shops, and 9 years later, when ATF comes knocking and goes, "Hey, what happened 9 years ago in this transaction?" And you're like, "What the hell?" They do that kind of stuff at you. So having some of that stuff is handy. Not that it's worth anything, because it's just some notes, but if it jogs your recollection, and now you can find some pictures on a hard drive or something, that's a little different. So anyway, I have some information about where I got it, if it was a gun show or a gun shop, what I think it's worth. And that, again, if you're doing this once a year, updating it with what it's worth can be interesting. You may even want to keep a timeline of that, what its value has been, sort of like some of the Zillow things with properties. most of my stuff is goofy, dumb stuff. So like my bayonets and things, if I knew somebody who was collecting XYZ and I fell off a cliff, I'd want the stuff that completes that person's collections to go to them. Like, I don't care, right? Like, so some of my stuff that was specific, I would put in my spreadsheet whose it is or whose it should be going to. Some things were friends of me. Some friends have transferred guns around back and forth constantly. Like, this is a $500 gun, that's a $50 gun, that's a $100 gun, and we just move it around as a token. Whenever we need money or whenever we feel like shooting that gun, we buy it from each other. So I'll keep track in case I ever owned one of those. Those are all back to their owners, I think. No, I have a couple still, but whatever. Those we keep track of whose it actually is, so that it just goes back to them if someone else falls off a cliff. Right. Some guns I've got that are other people's that just for whatever reason they don't feel comfortable and I got them. So definitely keep those in your list, but they're not mine, so that they all go back to where they're supposed to go. And then I would even go so far as to, because if I figure like if somebody's reading this, it's kind of for me in the old days, I guess, if I'm old and remembering what it was like. But also if I fall off a cliff and somebody's trying to figure out what to do, I got like what gun shop to take this to. Like, take this one to this gun shop and you're going to get more money. Take this one to this gun shop. Take this one to this gun shop. This one doesn't go to a gun shop. This goes back to Charlie or whatever, and that kind of thing. So basically, I had some stuff like that. Since it's sort of your diary and your notes of your collection. Now, I guess if it went to court, I never think of it from that angle because I don't go to court. That's me knocking on wood.
Mine.
So, I don't think of it as like all that going into evidence because there's a lot of notes and stuff in there. And if you've got like a spouse or something, and some people might have a column in there for, like the ring you bought to say thanks for being able to buy this or something like that. And that might be, stuff you don't want in public. I don't know.
Right. Mine I've got, and that's one reason I like the app style is, you're able to, keep the photos embedded and stuff like that. So you've got kind of an archive of as you change the grips or you change the sights or you change the scope, and it's a progression of how it's looked different, which is kind of cool. Yes, I do agree. Always don't throw out records just because you got rid of the firearm. Keep those because that from looking back, and remembering can be key. Or you never know, in some situation where that information it might actually help catch a criminal. It's possible. You never know. And you're not. I don't guess you'd be obligated to do that, but it would be nice to know if 8 sellers ago, you sold it 8, eight times before the criminal got his hands on it. Well, at least you might could help him get caught in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So that could be kind of neat. Also, round count, and then the other one that I do since I reload is I'll keep specific load data for those firearms in there as well. Now I have a whole other spreadsheet and record keeping thing for load data, but once I nail down a specific awesome loading for a particular firearm, I will copy and paste that usually in the notes section or something else of my actual logs, firearm logs.
Well, that's the thing. I think what you're talking about there, it would be like a log. So there's 2 different things. I guess I was thinking of what do they call like an FFL's A&D book. So I'm thinking more of like an inventory book, I guess. But what Clover's talking about is another concept that most people don't bother with, but people who dealt with just maintaining equipment or running an armory or something where you had to be responsible for a lot of different equipment, you can't remember it all. So you keep a log with each one, and then you keep the serial number of the log book. There's the date it was born. Here's the whatever you want to start. Yeah, exactly. Like, it started out with this, we replaced the whatever at this point, we changed these pins at this point, another session, 10,000 rounds, 10,000 rounds, 1,000 rounds, whatever it is for the different thing. And it could be as vague as, you figure, you go back and go, oh, last month I shot, or, last 6 months I must have shot, or, last year I spent about this much on ammo. So that must have been, 6 range. So it can be vague. But it can also, I've seen people who are meticulous. So yeah, and then the reloading thing, whole nother layer. And all of that can easily be bound together in that same, with your inventory and all that, because it's all
right. And coupled with her other question, which was the insurance side of things, having the most data and records and everything else available is certainly going to help in the unlikely event that you've got to file an insurance claim on something. At least that shows that you've had enough forethought to keep track of all your stuff, and you can give them actual figures and numbers instead of going, oh, I think I had 500 rounds and I think it was Remington something, or you can go, nope, here's what I had exactly. Here's
Now,
what paid
before we
for
head
it,
off,
all that.
unless Tony's got something he wants to throw in, I want to disagree with you on the one piece there, which is probably going to disagree on you, and that's the tracing part. I don't believe in that. Now, I'm not just trying to be objectionary or like be spiteful to the government agencies. I understand where you're coming from and whatnot, and I don't have any problem. I'm not trying to inhibit.
Well, you're certainly not bound to do that, and I didn't say
No,
you
not at all.
was, and I didn't say anybody. I didn't. That's a
But here's the
personal
thing.
decision.
I just don't think it's wise. I wouldn't. Well, if I did keep a record, I would think a lawyer would be very wily or whatever, right? Like really standoffish. So in other words, offering anything to government, they're never there to help you. It doesn't. You're a witness. Who cares? You're just another crumb on the way to their actual goal. You're never you're either their prey or you're something to get to the prey. And they'll tell you that. I mean, that's just their job as prosecutors. And all the investigators' only goal is to have more successes. So you're just a piece no matter what. And any misinterpretation or waste of your time, just imagine this. Even though, again, I have no regard for tracing. I think that's the biggest bullshit waste. Like, that's a theater. It's a distraction that's a poison, because it not is just a waste of time and an infringement, but it perpetuates the idea that the state is somehow supposed to be all-knowing and able to be all-knowing, and when it is all-knowing, it'll finally be safe. It's a horrible, position to have, and that's what they're reinforcing. But let's say that again, I'm not trying to impede justice or anything. I just don't believe that is justice, or that's useful on the pursuit of justice. Because let's say a gun is created. So it has nothing to do with the factory or any of those factory workers. We all concede that. It gets shipped somewhere. The postage person has nothing to do with anything. They can't possibly know what the use of that gun in the future, right? It could be a fork. It could be a pack of napkins. They don't know what's in that package that they deliver. The middleman, whoever that person is just facilitating it getting to a gun shop somewhere. So they're just allowing that manufacturer to make in quantity and then just, facilitate distribution with the time necessary so that shops can have a reasonable amount in inventory at all times. So now it gets shipped to a shop. And again, that next seller has that next shipper, that person in the postage chain has no idea where that gun's going and has no duty to somehow stop the gun from going there, right? Because you can't see the future. Gun shop has it as a piece of property in their shop. They don't know if it's going to go be used as a piece of instruction, if it's going to be chopped into pieces, if it's going to be used as an illustration illegally in the Washington, D.C. by the President of the United States. Like, they just have a piece of property there, right? And then it finally gets sold to somebody. Now, because of a stupid obligation from 1938, they got to write down some numbers and stuff. So now it gets sold and it gets sold. And let's say it's a hot potato. It's just a gun that everybody thinks they're going to like because it's so awesome and the grip angle is chatted up on everything they ever hear about. And they get it and they're just like, oh, this is horrible. I really hate this thing. I don't like the grip angle and it's stupid and it's too short here and it's too long there. But this next guy I know is asking me to buy it and I'd rather try his whatever. Boom. Like, same thing happens. That guy's like, man, I'm a chump. So some girl wants it. He's like, all right, I'll sell it to her. She's like, dang it, I got screwed over. I'm going to sell this thing. So it goes through like 5 owners. And then something happens. Let's say that somebody is jaywalking and they get busted. And they get busted jaywalking and they pat them down and they go, you got a firearm? Well, you can either plead guilty to jaywalking with a $50 fine, or we're going to take you on a mandatory firearms charge because you violated like state law by jaywalking here in a school zone with a firearm. So you're going to federal jail for 10 years, or you're going to get guilty for a $50 fine. And they go, guilty, $50 fine. It goes up as a gun thing. And now the ATF is mandatorily tracing this gun law. Now, somebody in the middle there was some random chick who bought a gun because somebody online told her it was the perfect grip angle for her and she shouldn't buy an awesome revolver because she shouldn't. So she bought this chump gun, owned it for a week and got rid of it. And now, because the ATF's got nothing else to do but rack up overtime and go knock on all these doors because they're trying to justify serial numbers, she has to go wait in court somewhere and like stand around so that a whole bunch of other people who are getting paid to be in court for $3,000 an hour can justify their existence and, you know, keep this whole idea of things. So as much as I'm ranting, like, hell no, I'm not going to ever let somebody knock on the door and ask me about a serial number. I don't know what you're talking about, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's no possible way I am going to, not that I'm again trying to say I don't think criminal investigation should happen, but that's just, how could any of those people in the chain have anything to do with that eventual paperwork trail? And I don't know, maybe I'm just over ranting, but that's how I see that kind of thing happen. And there's no way I'm gonna.
Well, I can throw my own experience in with a firearm. Early 90s, I got arrested in Virginia, bullcrap, whatever, but I had firearms on me. It doesn't, like, to us, what's common sense and responsibility and us being responsible, to others looks like we're gun nuts, whack jobs, not to be trusted. So you need to keep that in mind, because with my arrest, I was giving the guy my lawyer, the rundown of my history with firearms, competitive shooting, Marine Corps, the other things I've done. And he was like, no, that's not going to look like you think it's going to look. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, what we do as firearms owners, we need to, you can do whatever you want, but understand it doesn't look the same to people that aren't in our circle and or mindset.
Definitely true. Do you think that's changing though, or you feel that's going to change?
No, I think all of us are where we are, and we know most gun owners are really responsible, but we have an entire culture that's against us, that wants to paint us in a corner in everything from movies to music, your entertainment, your social media. So we have a lot of pushback against us, and it's the same media that glorifies firearms and movies and television, but they still want to villainize the regular firearms owners. Now I'm thinking less and less people might believe that bullcrap, but I don't think we're going to have this great turnover of, 75% of the freaking place is going to be gun owners and understand what they're talking
Right on. I value that because I'm out here in Arizona, where it's easy for me to see that happen. In New Jersey, obviously it's not, right?
Yeah, and I'm in Jersey, where we still have closeted gun owners, because you could possibly lose your job if the wrong person is offended by the thing you own.
Yeah, or your expression of acceptance with it or something, right? Or like pride in it or something.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's a good point. Appreciate it. That's why what we're trying to offer. So I don't know. That was from She Fires asking live. So thanks for that. She Fires got a great channel. I was introduced when she was on with Barbecue on 2 a.m. on Wednesday. But thanks for the question. Is there anything that we're missing there? If anybody is watching live, got a bunch of people now who wants to add to that. That was a good one with kind of an open-ended as far as what's your best record keeping method, and do you add firearms to your insurance policy? Like I said, we could probably do whole shows on that. And if that's a kernel that comes from these live chats, then that's awesome. If it's an idea for people to have topics for shows, sometimes people get writer's block or creator's block, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so here's the deal. It's about an hour, and usually we run this thing 4 hours, right? And it turns into marathons, and that's not necessarily useful or digestible. So should we start shutting it down, or should we go 2 hours? What do you guys feel like? It's your show as well, and people are out there throwing the hashtag throw in no point. It won't let you point in the hashtag. So I know it's a weird one today. So it's a bit of a typing challenge and a verbal challenge here. But the hashtag, like Smeggy put it here, She Fires has got it, like Brian's got it, without the point. So 762X39MM. I don't know why I decided to do it, and I immediately regretted it. I'll make it easier in the future. But with that hashtag, we'll eventually come over here and do this giveaway. But I need at least some time to go figure out what the patches are going to be, because I got to go find the pictures and everything. But now I'll let you guys answer the question. Should we keep going, or should we wrap it up?
Up to
I
you
wouldn't
guys.
go. I wouldn't go past the 1.5 hour mark.
All right, cool.
Okay, we'll shoot for another half an hour ish or 20 even.
By the
And
time you do we hit another question and you do the patch thing, we should be about there.
yeah. So Smeggy had one here for the live chat. He said, as his buddy wants to buy a new gun, he's thinking of an auto ordnance Thompson or a 1911. What should he get first? Well, does he know that there are auto ordnance 1911s? Like they do make 1911s, so you could accomplish both of those things. Well, at least not the Thompson part, but it actually says Thompson on the 1911. I owned one for a while, and mainly because I didn't like 1911s, but it was an awesome price, and it said Thompson on it, and I was like, well, this kind of seems like I should buy it.
Right.
And it did accomplish that. I can say that I've owned an auto ordnance now. I have owned a 1911, and it was okay. I'm not going to go around saying it was the best gun or nothing, but it wasn't. I think it was made in the United States, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was all right. And I got it really cheap. Nobody likes them. I mean, there's 1911 snobs don't like them. So I'd recommend that if you can find one. It's also rare, I'm sure, because they don't really make them anymore, I don't think. But anyway, if I was really picking between the two, 1911. Thompsons are super heavy. They're neat and everything, but I don't like. I mean, they're neat. And if I got one for free, if I was hanging out at Dragon Man's or something, and I could just go grab anything out of the museum and play with it, I would eventually play with a Thompson again. I've played with Thompsons a lot. I know a bunch of guys from World War II era who just owned them and liked them and would share them because they enjoyed them. They are super fun. It's kind of like driving a Jeep or something, right? It's like just a fun experience to shoot a Thompson. But the pistol, the semi-auto version, is the opposite of that. It's like the poor, sad Uzi rifle with the long barrel.
It is 100%.
Yeah.
I like them, and I can see if you really dig them, get one because it's as authentic as you can get. It's not like for a while there. Remember those 9mm 45 clone thingies that existed made out of Zamek? Like there was an ugly time for Thompson fans when the only thing you could get was these, like, maybe they were 45 ACP, but they were made out of Zamek and they resembled the silhouette of a Thompson, the same way that some of these weird early M16 looking 22s were kind of an M16.
Was it black? Was it black
Yeah.
all over?
Yeah.
It was called a Nighthawk or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah,
And
I remember that.
it might have been made over in your neck of the woods. But anyway, they only lasted for a bit because Thompsons were expensive. And anyway, they are neat, but I'm still going to say 1911 is, you got to get one. If you're going to be a gun owner, don't you have to have a 1911 at some point? You don't have to love it. You just have to have one. And you're going to have to own it to find out if you're going to be a 1911 person. You can't become a 1911 person from over here. You have to have one in your hands to know if you're a 1911 person, I think.
And truthfully, you really have to buy a good 1911. One with the traditional 1911, like really nice trigger pull kind of thing, not some of the others. So just be careful about the 1911 you have.
But for me, I think that by buying the cheap one, because the Thompson was, I'm pretty sure everybody calls it a cheap one. Like I said, I never met anybody that was like, oh, you got a nice 1911 there. Like the front sight fell off of it because, you know what I'm saying? I don't know who owned it before me. I bought it used. So I mean, I know abuse it went through. But it was just, it didn't have a dovetail and I never could put a new one on because I was too cheap to go rivet on a new one or you have to do. But for me, it was perfect because I was pretty sure I wasn't going to become a 1911 fan. And I could fiddle with any 1911 I wanted at the store, but I needed to own one to know if I really wanted to be around a 1911 all the time. And even having that cheap one, I was like, oh, no way. Like I did not enjoy sitting at home taking apart a 1911 and thinking about all the work it's going to be to add any new part. You know what I mean? Like you don't just add a part to a 1911. You get out a bunch of tools and roll up your sleeves and go at it for a while. And hopefully you got an even better 1911 out of it. That ain't for me.
Yeah.
And I think if I would have had a nice one, I would have bought a $1,700, well, let's say a $1,900 one, and then had to sell it for $17 because I owned it. You know what I mean? Like, and that with my inexpensive one, I almost made a profit on it. So,
I had an inexpensive one, but I think it was an auto ordnance one from back in the day.
Yeah, that's what I had.
Yeah, so I had no issues with it, but again, I wasn't smithing on it. I wasn't renting on it, as they say. But I enjoyed shooting it, but nostalgia more than anything else because it just chewed the web in my hand up with hammer bite. I can actually still see the scar that it left because I wouldn't stop shooting it. Again, nostalgia. And as far as the Thompson, go rent one. Go rent one and shoot it in semi-auto and see how annoying it gets. I don't even think, does it have a semi-auto or is it just full auto and safe?
Oh no, that's a good point. You can flip it to semi, and
Yeah, because we
that's
had
what you're going
one
to get always, no matter what. And when you flip it
always.
to full auto, you're going to realize what you're going to want every time you're shooting it in semi.
Exactly. And then it looks ridiculous with a 16-inch barrel. It really does. It doesn't, like, you have to ignore the last 6 inches of barrel just to feel giddy about it. We have them in Pennsylvania at the Heritage Guild during our diversity shoots. They have a few World War II era that were actually produced during the Second World War, and immediately after the war went to a film company. The people that the armory, the people that provides the firearms for the films. So it's pretty much came off the line and then went to work. So it was really good condition, but no, no. If I had a real one, no, I don't want one. It sucks because it's the first generation machine gun. It's the first generation submachine gun. So they had a lot of stuff they didn't figure out yet. It's gonna kind of suck the fun out. Yeah. Oh, other than that, you might be able to get it SBR'd, but then you're gonna have to buy that barrel from someone. It's not gonna be as much fun as you think for the Tommy gun. But if you really want one, get one. If you live somewhere where you can get an SBR version, spend the extra money at least visually. It'll be fun to look at.
Oh, you're right. No, and that's a massive point that I didn't even bring up. That it's, well, I kind of said like the neutered Uzi, because that's what happens. You either get the pistol without a stock and it's normal, but it's no stock, so you can never shoulder it,
Mhm.
or the rifle, and you can take the stock off of the rifle, but it's got that crazy long barrel that's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
So
yeah, because
you're right.
we
You
had
got
the
to get
Uzi
an
too.
SPR.
Yep, we had the Uzi. We had the Uzi at our event again, the Heritage Guild. Give them a shout out because they had one with the wooden stock and the wooden furniture. Oh, so cool. I mean, that's the original, like, Israeli look with the wooden stock, and regular soldiers had them. And I thought it was really cool. But if I had to buy one today and I didn't live in Freedom Town, I didn't live somewhere where I could cut that barrel off and put a stock on it, I wouldn't really want to Uzi.
Yeah, that's my problem with Uzis too. Is they're super neat, but I only want one. I don't care about full auto on a Uzi. It's neat, but
No.
I don't mind shooting a Uzi semi. But yeah, I would only want an SBR one. Super
Yeah.
easy on an Uzi though. You just unscrew the barrel and screw, put a new one in and screw back on. So it's super easy to SBR or to get the barrel, facilitate that part. But yeah, $200 and all that waste of time and money and everything. It sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. It just blows. And it means nothing. I took 6 inches off the barrel. What did I do?
Well, but no,
I
it
didn't
makes the
feel
Uzi
crumb.
1,000 times cooler. Makes
Oh,
it a
yeah.
new
No. I'm
instead of whatever.
100% with you. I'm
But
just
my
talking about the
frustration, I
silliness.
guess, my frustration is I really like the folding stock. Like that's 99%.
Yeah.
Not 99, it's, oh man, it's definitely more than 50% of my thing about the Uzi is that crazy stock, and it's so crazy, and I don't like it, and I hate it, but I love it, and it's just weird, and I freaking hate it, and I love it. But you have to take it off to put the wood one on. So for me,
Oh,
the wood one's never an option because I'm not taking my metal one ever off. You know what I mean? Like, so
yeah.
even though the wood
See,
one, like you say, is better. So that means I'd want two Uzis. But the thing is, I
uh-huh.
would get the wood one and put my bayonet on the wood one. And then that would be a formidable little,
There you go.
like, bumblebee or something.
It was just fun, man. Shooting. I because again, it's in Pennsylvania, so they can have full autos. And I finally got to shoot an MP5, HK MP5, and I got it because it was never my gun. It was never, I really. It's just another firearm to me that was in a bunch of movies, but I'd never pulled the trigger on one. I finally got to do it, and I was like, all right, I get it now. This is a fun gun to shoot. This is very controllable. This is fun. But when I got the Uzi, it was everything I wanted. You know what I mean? It was my the way some people feel about MP5s. That's the way I felt about the Uzi. It was my generation's gun. It was the one they used in Princess Gate to take over the Iranian embassy. The SAS did. It was what was in all the action adventure movies for the most part until the 90s. So everything I grew up with, the really cool gun was either Uzi or the old school Mac 10 with the suppressor on. So
Well, I got a
those
picture of the Mac on the screen now, and that's what I was going
nice.
to say. And I don't mind the MP5. I used to really, really, really like them when I was a kid. The MP5K, the little tiny one, and just because when you read about them in magazines and look at them, they look wicked cool, and they got all the cool options. The trigger packs replace them, and they got like modular. They're neat. They didn't really have modular stuff for the Mac 10s back then. But this is a Mac taken apart. And it's very similar on an Uzi, very, very similar on a Uzi. You've got your frame, you got a magazine down below, you got the frame with the trigger in it and the stock, and then a bolt, which is an open bolt thing. So the bolt is like also your firing pin and everything. And then you've got a upper, which has your barrel in it. And then there's a spring on there on the back of the carrier, and it all gets held together. It literally just folds together like origami. And then this little pin, the bolt carrier, fits into a little channel in a hole, and boom, the thing pops back together like a little kid's puzzle or like a trick box or something, and it just burps 45 ACPs or 9mm or whatever caliber it is out of it. And that's the part of it's basically the same in an Uzi, except that the Uzi has a barrel that screws in and out, and it has a bayonet on it and a little bit of a little bit of a grip up front. But it's literally the simplicity of an AK-47, or the not the same mechanisms, but the few parts, easy, throw a handful of dirt in it, doesn't matter. Where you take apart an HK, like I don't even have a picture because I've never got a degree in taking apart HKs. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going near all the stuff that's going on. Not that it's still a battle gun and everything, but just so much more. It's a German gun, it's crazy inside. So
Yeah, it's
that's
over
one of the things
engineered.
I like
Yeah.
about the Uzi is just that it's, what is it, 50s tech, and you can
Yep.
take an Uzi like this, and it's out of ammo. It's not out of efficiency. Like you're still being lethal with that Uzi. And at the end, you're like, oh, I got to change out my $8,000 Uzi because I broke it, saving my life. But, I didn't destroy my $10,000 HK at least in 3 smashes or something. I mean,
I actually have a story with a Mac 11. I've been a gun guy my whole life. Everybody knew it. In school, they knew it. I get out of the Corps, and a friend of mine was like, hey, Tom, you still in the guns, right? I'm like, yeah. So I come to the car. We go out to the car, and my man just pulls a Mac 11 out of a grocery bag and offers it to me for $200. I'm like, yeah, that's a no, dog. Like everything inside of me was going, do it, do it, do it, buy it. It's awesome. You can have one. Then I realized who I was dealing with, rumors I'd heard about him in school and everything else. And I was like, this is probably not legit. And I'm like, not only is it not legit, as in I'm probably going to be buying something that's stolen, something that may still be full auto. Because that didn't scare me off as much as this sucker's going to sell it to me and then snitch me out. You know what I mean? That's the way I saw it. And I was like, I don't want any part of this. And I walked away.
Oh, it's a good point. When people are, who knows what their motivations are, but they don't have your best interests at heart, that's for sure.
Yep, that was the thing that got me. I'm like, where did he get this? And again, someone we knew in high school, like we weren't best buds, but we knew each other, had classes together, joked around together. But he got into a scene that I didn't want to be in. And, I went my way and he went his. And part of me goes, man, I wish I would have bought that. But then I'm like, dude, he could have gotten caught the next day and given my name up just so he can get like years off of a sentence or something.
All right, so now I'm going to jump over to the giveaway thingy. So we've got the hashtag 762X39MM. I repasted it in there. At this point, it says we got 6 people, and I believe it takes me as an entry. So that means only 5 people are in it at this point. As soon as I hit the button, you won't have a chance to enter anymore. So while I describe what's going on here, feel free to join in. There's a bunch of people listening live still. If you're listening in the future, this is something that we're able to do when we use the StreamYard software to do these live streams. So I do this. Gizzard Gary does this all the time. Clover will do it on his shows. Ghost probably does it once in a while. Barbecue will do them. I'm sure other people that do the live stuff, G23. So it's worth checking out some of the people that use all these features of StreamYard. And anybody that's using StreamYard, it's nothing fancy. Just go to StreamYard while you're in your stream and type in StreamYard with a / giveaway, and I'll show you what happens when I refresh the screen. It'll go to this thing. It'll say, which of your broadcasts are you talking about? Because I got a whole bunch of broadcasts queued up. I'll pick this one. I'll put in that same hashtag again. How about I put in the hashtag this time? What was it? Hashtag 762X39MM, and then start collecting, and now it's up to 9. And I can draw, it'll pick it randomly for me, and then I can keep doing that. So you can have a lot of fun, and it's just a part of the StreamYard. Now, do you have to be paying for StreamYard to do this, Clover? I guess I don't realize if I might have this because I'm paying for it.
I don't think you do. No.
Okay. So anybody who uses StreamYard, there's free accounts for StreamYard, in other words. And some people are hesitating to use StreamYard because at some point they lock you down on the free. You can have many emails, so you can definitely try StreamYard before you pay for it. I'd encourage you. So we definitely see somebody stacking the books here. But you're going to get a patch packet, so let's talk about those. I've got them over here on Instagrams. We were using these as the prizes in the tactical quiz the other day. So I think I got pictures of them. No, I guess I don't. So you got a picture of them big here. There's 7 different patch packs. So you're going to pick one of these squares and it'll have a bunch of different patches in it. And in each of these, there's there's hardly any of ours. There's some patches of ours from the batches in the past, but a lot of, I guess there's 1 or 2 from us. But a lot of these are from friends of ours, and then SHOT Show and cool manufacturers, and then some just kind of random stuff. So depending on who wins, they'll pick the pack of patches, and then we'll ship them out to them. So with that being said, I guess we won't wait too long here. Well, I guess we can do this towards the end and give people as much time as possible to stack the decks, and Clover's doing that. So all you have to do to enter is type in hashtag 762X39MM into the chat. Now, if you're a federal agent and you're watching this on overtime because you're getting paid by the government to do it, I don't think you're allowed to participate, so don't bother. But if you're a regular person watching this...
So mine don't count. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying, because it always freaks me out when there's like 8 or 9 people watching this thing that don't participate.
No, you said a federal agent. Does an informant count?
No, well, you're making fun, but we know you're not an informant because you're not getting treated like crap by the government. They usually treat informants like criminals. That's what Mike Teddy's book is all about. He was trying to help them out by letting the ATF know that, hey, some suspicious stuff is happening, and they're like, hey, thanks. Hey, can we ask you to do us a favor, kind of thing? And then he became an informant. But what happens is most informants are like Tony was saying, like looking to keep out of jail, so they're willing to sell their grandma down the river. So they treat them like such. So most informants are usually getting chewed up. Not necessarily like they're treating them bad, but they're in the system. They get chewed up because there's no real incentive to be a witness. It's usually somebody who's criminally guilty of something trying to get out. They have no real... Anyway, not getting too negative here on a Saturday, hopefully.
But I want to say something and stress something. Most gun owners, really good people, never been in trouble, doesn't even know anyone that got in trouble. Like most people don't. So they have no idea how the system works or what it thinks of you. So yeah, when you're a citizen that wants to do the right thing and you'll do something like that, you're being lumped in with criminals. That's how they're looking at you. And somebody said perspective. And also where you live, is people look at you different when it comes to firearms ownership. What is it? Yep. Perception and perspective.
Yep, that's correct.
It's people will look at you differently, depends on the firearms culture and your local culture. Some places, oh, you just own a gun? What's wrong with you? You're crazy. You're a madman. But where I grew up in the South, and another thing is being black, depends on where you grow up. You got to be crazy to own a gun. But where I grew up in the South, it's like, yeah, all right, you got a firearm in the car or you carry one on you. but it also depends on the gun and the time frame. Back when I was growing up, if you had a revolver, makes sense. It's just a self-defense firearm. Yeah, the semi-auto is like, hey, what are you getting into there, buddy? And of course, rifles, lever action, shotguns. I mean, I grew up in a farming community, so it was a little fuddy. But there was no such thing as FUD back then, because in the 70s and 80s, I mean, there weren't a lot of semi-automatic handguns that people owned. I mean, that was not a big thing really until Glock came up and started pounding them out and giving them police departments, and police departments started changing over from revolvers to semi-autos, and then civilians started purchasing them. And then the military went from the 1911 to the M9. Like, there was a whole perception thing change that I think a lot of people don't know because they weren't alive for the history and didn't watch the magazines change and the coverage change of firearms. It's like, you don't know. No, there were still people having lever action classes for PDs in the early 90s.
Yep.
Like, this whole tactical Timmy thing is new-ish.
Well, the tactical part is new, but the whole idea of like, like the 357 was the tactical of the day. You're bringing up a bunch of points there that these like I don't know what to call them, like points on the timeline. That's actually one of the things we're going to do in an upcoming show here. I kind of been I'm going to find my YouTube. I've been trying to schedule some shows just to do them, even though I don't really have time to do them, but I'm sick of not doing them or whatever. And I don't do complete delves into it, but I'm trying to find this thing because I can't remember them all. But one of the things that has been bugging me is these waves of infringement over time. So whatever day this is scheduled for, I'll try to just stop whatever I'm doing and do the show, because like I say, I just want to address these issues. But if this timeline will pop up. So back in the day, 1934, gangsters have guns, right? Who are gangsters? Oh, these are the immigrants and stuff, right? Prohibition, what created the gangsters, right? Prohibition. Saturday night specials. You know, there's words missing out of that phrase, right?
Yeah.
That actually comes from Gun Control Act of 1968. Like, where'd all that come from? Was that fear for real, or was that fear manipulated, or was that a fear of everybody figuring out the scam, right? Of like this whole shake the ants bullshit. You got zip guns, banning guns in public housing, and raising a reaction to raising crime rates. So you get an intentional manipulation, a flip, where they start to ban or start to blame the property and not the situation that's created when the public housing, which wasn't always in existence. That was a thing that happened, and some people call it failure and some people whatever, right? Like, there's whole things about that. But when you shake ants, right, when you get people pissed off and stressed, and then you get reactions and then blame the things that they react with, that's messed up. Like, that's, what's that called? Like, when you're not actually paying attention to the actual cause, right? Then you get into the culture war on guns. You get the Brady bill, and like, this is the 90s, and I'm missing big chunks here. This is sort of like my notes. And then this new Heller version of the Second Amendment is what they call what we've got today. So when the antis can talk about us, we're this new Heller version of the Second Amendment. Like, the Second Amendment, everyone was in harmony and unity, and the Second Amendment was only for militias until Heller came along and got everybody all riled up and thinking about it's an individual right. Like, literally, some of these people, I think, in their minds, think that the whole world thought that it was a right of the militia until 2004 or whatever, and Heller got us all riled up into thinking it's a individual right, and this is like a brand new thing. And if you pay nothing but surface interest to this stuff, and somebody tells you that, that's your perception of history. You know what I'm saying? And then the assault weapons ban, you know, they call us, I guess, I've heard us referred to as the post-assault weapons ban gun owners, and I can't even imagine what they're calling the new gun owners. Like, what do we call them? We don't even have a name for these new gun owners, and they're going to be calling them something. But anyway, so I'm going to try to put some address, but what you brought up there was the kind of stuff that I'm going to have to go back and listen to, because you just filled in a bunch of the gaps there if I started to think about these waves.
Well, to piggyback on, just to piggyback, Tony, on what you said. So the Texas troopers switched from the Winchester 94 to the Mini 14 in 84. So they were using it up until that point, which is crazy to think about. And then
Well,
they
back
actually
then,
used
like,
and they actually used the Mini 14 until 2004,
Yep.
I'll
which is
bet
even
you a
crazier.
Texas Ranger with a lever gun though is like
No, not a
all
Ranger.
you need.
Troopers.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't know what the Rangers used, but Trooper, not a Ranger.
No, Rangers definitely use.
I don't live in Texas, so guess what? Everybody in law enforcement in Texas is a Ranger. So
It's a Ranger.
Okay,
Nice.
well, there you go. Well, there you go.
No, the Rangers use them pretty late too, because that's one of the things I've been into. Understand, I came into this because I like the surplus. I like the old school guns because of the history behind them and the stories that came with them. So to me, there was no excitement really outside of you saw it in movies for AR-15s and 16s. I was issued it. I ran it. I was competent with it. But when it came to owning a firearm before I became an instructor, I had no reason to have an AR. I really liked my other stuff. And that lever action too, it's self-contained. You don't need magazines. You don't need anything. It's very simple comparatively. Mechanism. It has straightforward ammo that you can load, depends on what it is, 357, 44, even 45, 70. I mean, these are things that's easy for the regular person to handle. So that's why I dug them. And I've even done a show on them talking about a pretty good apocalypse gun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For real, not the CQB fantasy a lot of people have about what post-apocalyptic would be. It's like, just stop, y'all. Just stop. But I'm like,
Well,
there's a history behind these guns. That's what I was into, and it wasn't so long ago that they were standard issue and what was on the cover of magazines pretty much through the 80s.
yeah. So Brian out there is saying some hear semi-auto and all they hear is auto. Do either of y'all ever get caught? And I guess it's just from being around firearms as long as I have. When I talk about revolvers or this, that, and the other, and I mention an auto loader to somebody, and they're like, "What are you talking about? An auto? You're talking about a full auto?" And I'm like, "Talking about it's semi-automatic, right?" Did you ever hear that nomenclature of auto loader? Because I just grew up around, oh, that's an auto loader.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, it's just
Auto
not as
5.
now because nobody says it anymore. But I think it's a difference between like a pump and a slide fire. Like some people don't know there's a difference, and most people don't care. I think it's one of them things. Like the old timers don't say it anymore, so nobody hears it and nobody thinks about it again.
Slide action. Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, I think that's what it is.
And that's actually the technical terminology for it.
Just slide action.
It's like slide action is when it's attached to the bolt, and it's a pump action when it's inside of it or something.
Yeah.
There's a difference, but
Yeah.
now they're all pumps, so it doesn't really matter. But the slide was the first one. But anyway, it's just old and stuff that didn't even matter at the time, really, because only the person who'd be like, "Oh, magazine clip," would have ever cared. And nobody normally cares anyway, you know what I mean? So it's just the person who's like, maybe in a class or something is like, hey, you know what? There is a difference, and this is what a magazine is, and that's what a clip is.
And I've talked about this, and I've yet to find it somewhere on a drive in the infinite terabytes of data. I've got a file that I downloaded, and it is a scanned copy of an Army training manual from like 1914, or I don't even remember something, right? 19 in the teens, where it actually refers to 1911 magazines as clips. It says clips in this Army manual. And then I've got numerous photos where companies are calling a magazine a clip.
Because before that, you had a clip loading internal box magazine on your bolt actions. So your first semis, they looked at it as just and there was a box stripper clip, right? It was like a closed stripper clip, except that instead of popping out, you had to push a damn button to get it.
Well, what I'm getting at is most people that argue between the clip and the magazine, they think it's a really new thing, like it just come about in the 90s with rappers or something. And it's like no, that's been interchanged for a long time.
At some point, somebody had to go, look, they're no longer the same thing. Like we have to start calling them different. And then everybody started calling them different. Now everybody's calling them mushing together. It's more of like, hey, if the antis want us to be precise, then let's know what the precise is.
Yeah.
Now, do we have to be all the time? No, but we have to be able to know precise when it matters. And if we can't ever talk about it, then they'll never learn it. And it's just one of those things,
Right.
But what are you
Well,
going to
the
do?
funny part is this, though. I mean, if you really think about it, early 1900s, right? 19 teens, the clip of rounds that you slide into something, that technology was less than 20 years old as general issue.
Yeah.
We're talking like what, late 1800s, 1880s to 1890s was when like Mauser and all those companies got issued, won military contracts. So we're not talking long at all. That this was just anything that you had more than one round was a clip that that you put into the firearm at one time. Things change, things stay the same, nothing's new.
No, it's interesting when we think about it like that on a timeline. How long muzzle loaders and those kind of things were around, and then how relatively quick it went from bolt action to semi. There wasn't like generations and generations and generations of bolt action shooters. There was a whole bunch of generations of black powder shooters, and now there's been a whole bunch of generations of semi-auto shooters. But those bolt action shooters are kind of like a little island in the middle, and all we know is like the memories of them because none of us are like that.
Yeah.
Right? We never were restricted to them. That wasn't our high tech. You know what I mean?
I wonder, as far as stripper clips are concerned, or cartridge clips, or whatever. I don't even know the nomenclature they called them back in the day. But does anybody know the history on that? And if that was like a disposable thing in wartime? Did anybody, when you loaded, did you throw that in your pocket, or did it just they didn't care?
Inconsequential back in the day with stripper clips, but yeah, always disposable. Just
always,
perishable. A magazine was disposable for the most part. That's why they made them out of aluminum. However, everybody knew that you could pick them up and use them again, so they didn't just throw them away always. But they're designed, in the regs, they're disposable, perishable.
Right.
Like the infill wasn't like the infill. The earlier versions of the infills are actually chained to the gun, like the magazine.
But they also had the number one Mark IIIs. Earlier versions also had a mag limiter that you could slide and single shot it.
Yep. I mean, almost all of the military issue had the ability to cut off.
Would that be because they had grenades that they'd stick on the barrels and that was for that? Or was it
but I was told, and I don't remember if this was Logan or Ashley or who, but we were talking about it because I was talking about having one of those. And they're like, ooh, that's a really early model. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And they were like, no, that was for like engagement farther away. You conserved your ammo. You pulled it out of your ammo pouch, you know what I'm saying? And you single shot as they were further away. But as the enemy got closer, you flipped the limiter off, and then you could Mad Minute, right? You could work the bolt faster and get more rounds off if you needed to.
Same thing I heard.
It was for ammo conservation, was what I've been told.
Yeah, you couldn't take that limiter off. I mean, you couldn't take that off. You couldn't turn that off until your NCO told you to.
Right.
So everything would be single shot because of distance. And when they get closer, they wanted you not to be reloaded.
Yeah. Yep.
They wanted you to pour those 5 rounds of 30-06 on.
Oh, well, it also makes sense, like you're just saying, like if you've got a 5-round magazine and a chamber, if you put it into that mode, you're basically telling the magazine disengage, just sit there and mind your business, and you're using like a bolt action. So now it's like bang, eject, bang, like manual load, bang, eject. So whenever it comes time to what you guys are talking about is when they would kind of just slam fire a bolt action. You'd hold the trigger down effectively and rack the bolt, and it's just shooting as fast as you can rack the bolt. And that would be when they got close enough to see the whites of their eyes kind of business when they're about to get stabbed with a bayonet, right? So it would be like bolt action, bolt action, bolt action. I need the magazine now. So you didn't want to be like 4 rounds into your magazine and then have 1 round left to do your right.
Yeah.
How horrible would that? And then you get stabbed by somebody either jumping down on you or you jump onto a bayonet. Every part of that was bullshit except for, and then you get all muddy.
Well, the technology was crazy because it went from this is the latest and the greatest early 1900s, cartridge multi-rounds in a magazine, to immediately when they run out, you're back to lances and pikes immediately.
Yeah.
It's like 5 rounds later, you're one of the Knights of the Round Table, bro. I mean, that technology they recognize. That is crazy.
And it ain't like let's square off and have like some kind of honorable match on a mat with people watching and score. And it's like fight to the death, try not to get killed as another person's fighting to the death at your shoulders, and then start killing the person who just tried to kill your brother or did kill your brother, and then do that again over and over until last man standing.
That's amazing, dude. I mean, and if
with
you've taken
mortars and other things and landmines and things going
all
on.
Poison gas, tanks, machine guns. What else?
Right.
In the mud.
Plague or something, because they had smallpox or something at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
In the mud, and you're hungry because the food's not getting up, and the food that sucks. Yep. Or hot. Yeah. Oh, and you're doing it all in wool. All wearing wool.
Right. Leather and steel, the metal and wood, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah. My partner and I used to call. We used to have a game called "Could You Kick Your Grandfather's Ass?" And that just makes me think. It's like, no, those dudes are badass.
Not even a chance. Like a little kid back in the day could whoop people, probably, right? Like, school or do stuff probably as a chore. Like, not even kidding. That whole like going uphill or whatever. I'm sure they had to just like weird stuff, like a pack of dogs coming in at them or something.
Oh yeah, dude. It's like, yeah, no, I couldn't deal with like my 10-year-old granddad's like anything life.
I know that my grandpa had a shotgun that he took to school with him, and it would be like, because if he came home or on the way to school, he seen a rabbit, like then that was dinner. Like you brought that home and you were helping out. Like nobody cared that a kid was dragging a shotgun to school with him.
Nope.
In fact, they probably were like, "Look at that kid's not even taking a shotgun to school with him. What kind of lazy kid is that?"
Yeah, right. Look at that bum.
Well, how many stories have we heard in the past where schools were threatened and students brought their shotguns to school and stood guard?
Oh, I never heard about that until the internet, and then I started seeing stories like that. But yeah.
I'd never heard about them prior to the internet, but it was commonplace. Shotguns in the back of the truck in the late 80s. Now, I know a lot of people that were born in like the 90s going, ooh, that was forever ago. I'm like, dude, this is not forever ago. That's less than 40 years.
So when
whenever the Fall Guy was on, they were talking about that on some show the other day. And
so it was 88, I believe, 87, one of those years. I won a 22 rifle at school in a thing at school selling fruit and sausage and things. Won a rifle, was awarded it and the rifle was there in the ag teacher's office from like the day the contest started, right? It was there with a box of ammo. Won the rifle, was awarded it with a box of ammo in a bucket. It was back when they had the little bucket of bullets. It wasn't a huge one nowadays. It was like a 500 round or something bucket of bullets. Was awarded it and the bucket of bullets in the school gym. It went back to the ag teacher's office. I went and picked it up whenever school let out and took it home on the bus. Nobody said anything. Nobody cared. Nobody complained. There wasn't a big article in the paper written up at the gun that was given away at school. Like nobody cared.
You won the gun? Good job or whatever. Like,
they're like, oh, that's awesome. Oh, so you're gonna go home and shoot that? I bet you.
Don't take this out of the box. I'm sure they said something like that. Like, don't play with it.
I don't remember them even telling me that, to be honest.
All right, what the hell is fruit sausage, though? Is that literally fruit in sausage?
I said fruit and sausage.
And sausage. That's funny. I'm like, why is sausage all over my screen?
Fruit.
I was thinking you said fruit sausage. I'm like, that's never.
No, they would do like the ag departments. If you ever did those classes, they would, or at least they did back in my day here. They would sell boxes of fruit and things.
You don't have those classes in cities. That does,
Until
here's a nice thing about going into the military. You figure out everything you don't know about the rest of the world because everybody thinks they know everything. I've seen like I know everything about the world. You go in there and you're like, oh no, wait. There's a whole bunch of happening around this country.
Oh, it is ridiculous back in the day delivering that, right? The big boxes of apples and oranges and grapefruits and whatever. And you especially if you were the one that sold the most, imagine how many deliveries you had to make, heavy boxes of fruit and stuff. Oh my God, it was horrible.
Thank goodness I only sold this stuff to my relatives, so I was going there anyway. It's like, hey, here, Here's the box of apples you bought. Thanks.
Yeah, I wanted the rifle, man, so I sold.
No, I got you. I
Okay,
got
now
you.
we're gonna finally get wrapping up here. We're
All right,
gonna
cool.
do the raffle, or the not the raffle. I'm saying we're gonna do the giveaway tool thingy here. The random thing.
Sorority.
Yeah. To for these one, see, there's a dice on the thing. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. There's like a little dice on there to indicate which one is which. And
Oh man.
there's a bunch of stuff in there from Owl and Anchor. There's a bunch of stuff in there. There's none of Tony's stuff. There's never enough ammo. There's Night Strike, but there's nothing really from you guys. So, but some one day there will be, because I got a bunch of your stuff too. So I guess I shouldn't do that. Instead, I should go back to here. I think I threw the link out there already. I think I've given everybody enough time, so we're doing
yeah.
it. We're drawing.
Yeah, man.
Here's
Reverend
Spin
Ken's
that
book.
wheel. Spin that wheel.
Oh, he just gets it
Oh
on the
wow.
Overtack account.
Okay, there. I didn't even have to cheat. So, I don't think She Fires is out there anymore. So I can say, I want to donate mine to She Fires. So, but I guess I'll pick, and then I'll just get you maybe her address. I can't see the screen.
Well, why don't you guys give your outgoing plugs? Give her a chance if she is out there. So basically, Clover doesn't want to be a jerk and just win being on the panel, make it look like it's fake or whatever. Yeah, see, she's there. So do you want to let her pick which one she wants?
Yeah,
now?
she's out there. Yeah, pick, girl. It's yours.
Right on. So feel free to ask any questions. This first one's got the, I think it's called Black Arms Gun Club out of South Florida.
Can you put the big picture up and then cycle through them, or is that a square? That's a grid, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is. It's just it's a little thing, and I didn't put the big pictures up ever of the patches. But that's a branch of the National African American Gun Owner Association out of Florida, and they're the only ones I knew of at the time that did patches. So I wanted to jump on their patches. So that's, and then Haas is a Marine that I drove around with in 12. Doing
Haas.
Then we got some various other patches. The Shoot 'em in the Face is AmericanSnipers.org. For many years, I would go to SHOT Show and they would set up, and you're not allowed to sell stuff at SHOT Show, but they don't really heckle the nonprofits, or at least no one did until really recently. So one of the very few things you could actually buy at SHOT Show was like something from a nonprofit, and I would always buy one of these AmericanSniper.orgs. It's basically an organization that just help support the families and descendants of snipers. And not that I know any snipers or anything, but it's just cool. And I would get a different sniper patch each year. So maybe 3 years ago, there was an event and they were set up. So I bought a mess of them. She said she'll take well, I don't have an 8. So they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. This middle one and the book aren't, well, I guess you could have the book if you want. That's
Reverend Ken.
Yeah, well, I was going to say Ken Blanchard's second book, but he did these last year, I think, as a thing, and he signed it, so it's a signed one.
Oh, awesome.
Then we got, I don't know if there's anything interesting in this one. Model 1 Sales, the company that sells a lot of AR parts.
Well, she's at the number 8 box, so if you're going down, left or right down, that would be number 1. The one at the bottom middle. That would be number 8, because she says, no, I'll take the one in the number 8.
But there's these, here, let me give her the picture to here, and then go ahead and start giving you guys his plugs so that we're not here all day. But then if look at the little dices in there. So that one's 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know if you can see my.
She said, yeah, number 1, bottom middle.
Okay, cool. So then it's over. So right on.
Awesome.
So that moved over. I don't have She Fire's address, I don't think. So if you want to email me, my email is gunwebsites@gmail.com. Right on. And I'm going to kill this mosquito and mute myself and let you guys chat about whatever you got coming up or anything you want to plug.
Go for it, Tony.
All right, cool. What I have coming up is on April 27th. We're going to have a diversity shoot in Monroe, New Jersey at a range called Recoil. So Recoil Range on April 27th. If you come to my social media, which is Simon Says Train on Instagram. The link to the ticket sales are right there in my bio. Simon Says Train on Facebook, and the second is for everyone on Facebook. You can go there and purchase tickets there too. I'm going to be talking to Night Strike so we can get my website done up, because we've gone from having 6 events a year to 24 events in 2022. So I can't wait to see you guys somewhere. We're going to be in Pennsylvania at the Heritage Guild, like the first or second week of May. We're going to be in Monroe again at a totally different range in Union Hill Gun Club. So we have multiple, at least 4 locations right now in New Jersey and Pennsylvania where we're going to be hosting events almost one every 3rd week. And what I need for you guys, if you can't be there and you can't buy a ticket, I need to be able to purchase ammunition, and we need funds so we can feed people. And you can do that at diversityshoot.com. You can donate to our PayPal. And I'm going to have some giveaways of patches and really cool stuff from SHOT Show for our Patreon. So if you start donating there, and I'm figuring like a $20 Patreon donation, and just monthly, we're going to pull some stuff. And I have a lot of video that I'm going to post as Patreon content first before I put it on YouTube. So please follow us, help us out, join us. You can see me on Twitter at Second for Everyone. You can get me at diversityshoot.com, and we have a bunch of links. So I really appreciate it. I know I went on for a little bit, but there's a bunch of ways you can contact us and see what we do and financially help us out. You're up.
Right on. So hold on. You're going to be able to stick around for a bit after we're off air?
Yeah.
Right on. So I just wanted to double check, but yeah, cool. So I just threw the link up to the site, and well, yeah, you definitely need to update it because the things on here are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, he emailed me the other day, a week ago.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll chat with you off air because I'll help you out if you need help with that.
Okay. Cool.
But yeah, we threw the link up, and then it's Simon Says Train on most of the socials.
Yeah.
Clover, what do you got?
Yeah, first I wanted you to, your screen sharing. So I wanted She Fires to know, I seen there was a gun channels patch in that plot. And so I wanted to tell her, if she makes events and things, make sure you bring that with you. Cause as you can see on the screen, that's just a tradition from back in the gun channel days. She come around a little too late, unfortunately, but we still carry on that tradition. If there's a bunch of us that have that gun channels patch, of taking a group photo with the patches, which is always cool. That one was done, I think, in November at the Whataburger in Tulsa. So always fun to get together and do that. Yeah, as for me, there was a video drop yesterday that was a really cool one for me on a lot of different levels, and I think historically is something that if you're into firearm history and things like that, kind of unique, let's say, firearms. Yeah, go check that one out from yesterday for sure. Yeah, podcast is on hiatus currently, trying to get some other stuff done between now and the end of May, which is the NRA show. But some cool stuff will be announced probably on the YouTube community tab, the Instagram channel, other places between now and then. Some cool things that are probably going to be going on at that show. I don't want to give away the farm just yet on it, so stay tuned for all of that. But hopefully I've got, I think, 70 some odd exhibitors currently on my to see list, to do list, favorites list, and a lot of those are organizations and things of that nature that I want to get into the podcast. And then we're going to have Tony back too, probably once that kicks back off after the NRA show. So that's all I have.
Oh, I wasn't even muted. Hopefully I wasn't making much noise on the side. So I was just going to say that, well, first off, I threw the link in there to Ask Gun Questions. That's the website that you can ask gun questions at, right? It's been around for a while. I'm curious, though, is everybody seeing the images and whatnot going down the right side, as you see here? And then there's these images at the bottom. When you refresh them, like the link there to Train and Learn, And then when it refreshes, now it's a link to Gunstreamer and Gun Freedom Radio. And when you refresh it again, it's coming up to different things. This one is Chicago Guns Matter. So they're both on a random refresh. Would you give me some feedback and let me know if those are showing up down there? But that's what I was going to get to, is that Gun Channels does still exist. It doesn't exist as a community like it did with some pretty expensive software and an ordeal to maintain and kind of keep a community together. You can't imagine how much effort it is to keep a bunch of people who don't really like each other to do anything together. And it's stressful. And if you don't have a staff that doesn't give a shit, it's not possible for humans to do it. I mean, your church can do it difficultly, but I couldn't as a human, right? So Gun Channels does exist, just not as a tremendous hidden effort anymore. But there is the community that we had, and then there's this. I'm trying to zoom in and zoom out to where you can see it, but it's also showing you what's going on here. So it's got the daily, and then per day, and then the less regular, more occasional podcasts. Some of the stuff that I listen to, or that I know a lot of people listen to, and then the people that were Gun Channels members. And then for a lot of these, and then somebody like Foss, who was never around for Gun Channels, I don't think, but every bit as Gun Channels is Gun Channels, right?
Yep.
And Gizzard, who's effectively the new Knives. Like, what we've got is people that have been and are effectively in that same kind of concept. Keep people that like to share, be polite, learn, be interested in each other, but not necessarily walk down the exact same paths all the time. Be like, have an environment online that we would expect at a gun show or at the range, where different people come together and share an experience and then walk away better and smarter. And ideally, my thing was to get content creators together. That never happened, or exclusively content creators together to create workshops and, all become better content creators. Parts of that happened, but anyway, it still exists in the respects that it's a listing of all the different shows that are happening. And then what I try to say, what do you call these things? Like a network. So like Brooke, I mean, I have as many things as I can remember and add down here. And if anybody would like this code to insert this in their websites, feel free. And so in a way, Gun Channels still exists as a community of people. It's just not the actual online forum where everybody had to pay a couple of bucks to physically pay for the servers, and then, rip the shreds my soul as they were asking for different things from different directions, whatever. But, that part. But the rest of it was awesome. And I try to provide that in Gun Channels over here now for people that just want to stay in touch and be aware of the diversity of what's happening in the firearms.
So it may be cheesy, but the way I see Gun Channels, and when I come in later, but of course I was around obviously for years. But the way I see Gun Channels is it's almost like when Obi-Wan got struck down by Darth Vader, right? He becomes stronger than you could ever imagine. It's like it's not there as a platform, right? But the spirit and the camaraderie and just everything else, right? Just kind of ramped up like the Obi-Wan Force Ghost or something. It's that's kind of the way I see the evolution that happened with Gun Channels. I don't see it as any type of a failure or anything at all.
Oh no, the failure was just that I tried to make it a thing where really all it is that community, and it was always there. It's just that for a minute there, it got focused through Portal Online, and it allowed stuff to exist online. That was the fun part, because the conversation's always there. Interesting people always meet at gun shows and walk away better. And what Gun Channels allowed us to do is record that. Like, it created a lattice work for people to add pictures and content and have a live conversation that was online. It was literally archived so people could watch it. The YouTube videos were recorded and rendered as evidence of the conversations people had literally 24 hours a day for a period of like 7 years. And that was the best part of Gun Channels, is that we actually created something. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to financially set it up so that like it had a team to do it, to accomplish that. So that part of Gun Channels sucked. But the fact that it brought light to that communication that's always there was beautiful. And that is what, we'll try to keep going with, all the projects really.
Oh yeah.
Focus on that. That's what guns, when we say guns are foundational, it's not because I got some violent urge to have violence around. That's your weird trip, lady or guy. Like the violence and everything is a manipulation. Firearms are just a way to visualize the innovation and technology and the overcoming of humans as what chemistry and metallurgy and mechanisms, and not to mention society and freeing individuals from tyranny and resisting tyranny. And with our conversations are unfortunately focused by people who exploit actual violence. They're always focused on self-defense, but in reality, the possession of a firearm by an old lady is not known by a bad guy. So some little kid who's thinking, should I rob this old lady and have a cheap, an easy way to get some cheap thrills and some money, or do I have lethal consequences for my action? That unknown, the ability for that lady to own that gun, not the responsibility of or even the ownership or the onerous obligation to own a gun, just the potential that she can own a gun stops tyranny, and it stops not just a little kid from thinking he's going to be a criminal, but a tyrannous politician from thinking he can harvest stuff from that old lady or that little kid both. So just the mere fact that they can own guns is what keeps us free. And people haven't quite hit that yet. But when the DC project starts to realize that it's not the fact that they own guns that prevents bad people, but the fact that we can all own guns is what prevents the stuff that's happening in countries like the one south of us. And unfortunately, what's happened, it sounds like north of us after talking to Bob yesterday. You know what I'm saying? We've got, anyway, I'm ranting, but I'll shut up.
Yep. No, I agree with you.
100% agree with you.
It's bigger than any one of us and bigger than any platform.
Yeah, so it's just, it's a neat thing, and it does bring people together. So again, thanks for mentioning all that. And she is getting that patch, and she's definitely part of the community. What she's doing with her projects, I mean, I can't even start to name all the people out there. Jenny J 1911 coming in to know her, a 5th grade teacher as a reloader. Some of the dudes that Kriss 704 407, I'm not good at, is it 704?
704. Yeah.
Again, coming in and and there's all the people that created the place for them to hit the ground running that aren't going to get mentioned as the people who sat down and that's what it's all about, though, creating stuff so that the next can stand on our shoulders and leap and not necessarily worry about what we had to deal with, right? But hopefully also understand that they didn't leap out of nowhere, and it wasn't just offered. There was a lot of effort in that. So remembering what you leaped off of. So and everybody's doing that. That's pretty neat.
Cool.
I'm rambling again. So it's a Saturday afternoon. We're definitely keeping it under 2 hours because I'm shutting it off. Thanks again for showing up. Thanks to Kriss, Clover for winning and then sending it over to She Fires. That'll give me an opportunity to send stuff to She Fires and everybody who is showing up live. And if you want to ask questions for next week, we didn't even hit all of them. Like I say, I kind of figured out the clog in the pipeline here. So we've got a couple of questions we didn't address. We'll take whatever new ones and add them to the pile for next week. Every Saturday we come back, we invite Dan Todd, who shows up occasionally. He's usually out running around on Saturdays, but he brings a couple of gun shops he owned a couple of different gun shops and now a gun auction house. He brings that kind of experience and lifetime gun ownership. Tony Marine, New Jersey resident, lifetime gun owner. Clover, Texas resident, lifetime gun owner, 4-H instructor. Everybody's a YouTuber. I've been doing stuff for a long time. I like sharing guns online. And our goal here is to offer answers to questions from a different perspective. A lot of the stuff I see online is novices talking to novices, which is fine. Technically, they usually know exactly what they're talking about, often way more than I would ever bother anymore to learn. But bigger picture, they miss stuff sometimes. And that's what we're here to mansplain, right? At least that's what I'm hoping we're offering, and hopefully just some fun and some new perspective on it. So let us know if we're doing that and if it's worth the time. And I'll run us out here with a commercial line to get closing stuff from you guys so that I can put some plugs for you guys here kind of more professionally at the end here. But now I will finally shut up and find where my buttons is and click them. GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com. I need to put those closer together. Thank you for supporting our projects. If you'd like to buy us a cup of coffee, check out our Patreon channel.
The guys and gals at gunwebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thank you for watching gunwebsites.com. Do 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 do.